Everybody, and welcome back to Know Thy Enemy. Thank you for being here. And as always, we're going to go ahead, look ahead to the next week, see what upcoming games the Bengals have, and talk about the strengths and weaknesses of their opponent and where the Bengals might be able to find victory. This week, the Bengals will travel out to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers, who have kind of remade themselves since Harbaugh has become a head coach again in the NFL. They've definitely kind of taken more on his run first approach or more run focused approach, even with a very talented quarterback like Justin Herbert. Looking overall at the offense for the Chargers this year, they are still ranking pretty well considering some of the atrophy they've had there, trading away Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, getting rid of them both, and kind of cycling into a cacophony of characters of Will Dissly and Quentin Johnston and Lad McConkey. So finding themselves with a lot of new faces, new coaching staff, new offensive staff. They still managed to be 15th in EPA per play in the NFL this season. They are 24th in success rate, have had more of the big plays than the sustained success. And you do see that and feel that with their offense throughout games, especially I consider the Saints game. That was one game where there was a lot of more explosive plays and kind of some touch and go there from the offense. Bengals fans know all about that. They're also 14th in EPA per dropback, so pretty good numbers so far from Justin Herbert and some of the pass catchers, and we'll dive more into that. Only 22nd in EPA per rush, despite having first-round pick Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater. Interior of the line is a little bit weaker, and J.K. Dobbins has been healthy, has looked good, but just has not necessarily done a lot in terms of forcing missed tackles and running through contact to generate a lot of runs. Much of his yardage has come on very long runs, 15-yard, 10-yard plus, and then a lot of inefficient carries in between there. That's kind of a symptom of the Chargers run game in general right now. When you look at their offense in terms of whether they are more pass or run focused now with Justin Herbert and Harbaugh taking over the reins, they actually pass slightly below expectation. And on second down, as well as second and short, third and short, they are up to 33% below pass expectations. So in those third and short, second and short, and even up to second and medium, they are more likely to run the ball, almost 30% more likely to run the ball in those scenarios than the average team or what you would expect in those situations. So that'll definitely be something to look for in terms of their short game, something to be expecting that maybe the scouting can kind of give the Bengals a tell like, hey, we should try and load up a little more and challenge them maybe to try and beat us with the pass because we think they're going to trend toward run more often than we would, being the number one passing over expectation team in the NFL. The defense has been really impressive this season, and I know the strength of schedule is not necessarily impressive, but defense is hard to play in this league week in and week out. And they sit right now first in EPA per play, fifth in success rate, third in EPA per dropback, and first in EPA allowed per rush. So overall, really, really good numbers for the defense. So let's go ahead. Let's refresh some of our memory with the Bengals, or I'm sorry, the Chargers stars that came to the Bengals stadium last time that didn't always go so well for the Bengals, unfortunately. We're all very familiar with that and fresh in our minds, I'm sure. Lots of feelings around this game as the Bengals try and get right. So let's talk about the star, Justin Herbert, and some of the other new faces that have joined the Chargers for this upcoming matchup. I want to make sure we give Justin Herbert his due because he absolutely deserves it. Right now, he's seventh in EPA per play plus completion percentage over expectation. Two very stable metrics, very predictive metrics, and when you combine them, you get something that's even more predictive. And it's one of the better metrics that you can use as an indicator of quarterback play in terms of points added based on their play, as well as how many passes they're completing over their expectation. So it gets you a wide encompassing stat to identify good quarterback play. Really good numbers for Herbert there. Sixth in EPA per dropback this season. He's actually sixth in air yards, despite not passing as much as we talked about with having the net expectation for passing under what we would expect by almost 30% in some instances. He also has the sixth highest drop rate among quarterbacks. So supporting cast has definitely taken steps forward as they're turning a new page from their previous kind of iterations, but they definitely have some growing to do yet. And you can definitely see that in a younger core and a kind of unproven core that while talented is still makes a fair share of mistakes sometimes. More on Herbert, fourth in PFF grade, sixth in passer rating, second in big time throw percentage, and 14th in turnover worthy play percentage. So, really good numbers for him 11 touchdowns, one interception. But that is one discrepancy there that I do see is the one interception and seven turnover worthy plays. So there have been six instances where he has put the ball in harm's way and it has not become a turnover. That may be somewhere where there's an opportunity more than you would expect. Whereas the one interception would suggest he's taking extremely good care of the ball, which he is. He is lower on the turnover worthy play percentage, but there is still that opportunity of, hey, some things have been dropped, things have kind of gone 50-50. You might expect that pendulum to swing back the other way, which would be very opportunistic and a good timing for the Bengals defense, which has struggled to generate turnovers in and of their own right. Talked about J.K. Dobbins earlier. The overall numbers, like I said, of being 15th out of 64 running backs in yards per attempt, fourth in runs of 10 plus yards, and 10th in breakaway percentage, runs of 15 plus yards or more. That suggests that he is a big play threat, oftentimes not created necessarily through his own means. He ranks just 32nd in the elusive rating, forcing missed tackles, and is also 36th in yards after contact per attempt. So, not doing anything crazy outside of the scheme, just taking advantage of the well blocked plays and making the most out of them, which is something to be credited, and happy that he's finally healthy and looking good with the team right now. But a lot of the success from the run game when they do spring the big plays has been as a result of that run blocking. And speaking of the offensive line, we have Rashawn Slater, who has been an anchor for them and continues to be that. He's second in PFF pass blocking grade out of 61 tackles, 13th in run block grade. And then you have flanking him on the other side, finally, some tackle help to aid the offensive line, protect Justin Herbert and his blind side. You have Joe Alt, who's 21st out of 57 tackles in run block grade, 13th when you look at gap run blocking grade. So interesting there. And he's 24th out of 61 tackles in pass block grade on true pass sets. And those true pass sets are great identifiers for having valuable tackle play, because you take out the wide receiver screens, you take out the play action, you take out all the very quick throws so that you get a better understanding of when the passing game is set and the defense is coming, 3rd and 7. How good are you? Joe Walt's been really impressive as a rookie. On the interior, Trey Pipkins and Bradley Bozeman, they both have passing blocking grades under 50. Zion Johnson at guard has taken another step forward and now ranks 17th out of 57 guards in run blocking grade, but he is still trying to find his way as a pass blocker, ranking 51st out of those 57 guards in pass block grades. So, interior of the line, well below average in terms of pass blocking. That's where a source of pressure can be. You're going to be looking for the interior of the Bengals offensive or defensive line to try and generate that pressure. Lad McConkey, another rookie, as we were talking about, a very talented rookie in Joe Alt. Lad McConkey ranks 23rd out of 109 receivers in receiving grade this season and 9th in missed tackles force. He's been a very reliable safety blanket in the passing game for Justin Herbert. 25 of his 37 receptions have gone for first downs this season. Very impressive number. And he's actually second in receiving grade among receivers with more than 65% of their snaps in the slot. So among the slot predominant wide receivers, he has been very productive and very talented in that sense. Quentin Johnson on the outside and the boundary has been having a second-year breakout, which is awesome for him and this offense. 39th out of 108 receivers in PFF grade, but first in passer rating when targeted and fifth in yak per reception right now, and he's second among wide receivers in yards after the catch, who among the wide receivers who play less than 30% of their snaps in the slot, because he is primarily a boundary receiver. You get less of those two-way goes, that runway to kind of generate that yards after the catch. So him being fifth out of 108 receivers is really, really impressive from a guy who's usually out at the boundary and not having as many opportunities for clean yards after the catch opportunities. He's also 30th in yards per out run. So not peak efficiency, but still top 30th percentile, top third. Like, that's really, really good from Quentin Johnston after the first year was kind of a little bit shaky, especially at times. Last thing on on the offense, Will Dissly has been a really, really good receiving tight end for the Chargers. Been a great way for Justin Herbert to have a safety blanket, a guy who can check down and just get you 4, 6, 10 yards and just be really reliable in the receiving game. 16th out of 45 tight ends in PFF grade, 14th in receiving grade, 6th in yards per out run, and 12th in yards after the catch per reception. Just really good numbers for a tight end. And that kind of lends itself to being one of those underneath options where he is 42nd out of 45 tight ends in average depth of target. his average target usually is only about 4 yards from the line of scrimmage. So definitely more of an underneath option that you can kind of play down on in that sense a little bit. Looking at the defense, they've been plagued by a lot of injuries, specifically to Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Khalil Mack, aside from the injury the last couple weeks, has looked a lot more like the old Khalil Mack that we're used to, where elite run defender, second in run defense grade out of 100 uh, edge defenders, 11th out of those edge defenders in pass rush grade, and 18th in pass rush win rate. He maybe re-aggravated his injury a little bit last week, only played a few snaps versus the Titans. Maybe they didn't want to push him. Maybe they didn't want to risk that. But that'll definitely be something to consider. And they also have Joey Bosa on a pitch count. He's had just 85 pass rush snaps this season in 6 games. And I think he's played about 20 or so snaps in both of the last 2 games. In that period of those 6 games, he's had just 3 sacks and 2 hits. So will be interesting to see how much these two dominant pass rushers actually play, if they're only going to be doing it more on passing downs and more on the key third down. So we'll have to see what happens with that rotation and what the final injury reports are talking about. But in their stead, Poona Ford, uh, a favorite of many around draft time and free agency a few years ago, 24th out of 51 in defensive tackles and pass rush grade, but he's fourth in his few pass rush grade opportunities on true pass sets and fourth in run defense grade. So he's been really good on the interior, anchoring them as a good nose tackle. And then Tuli Tua Pulotu leads the team with 6 sacks in his second year, picking up the slack for those DNs who have been out. 36 out of 65 edge rushers in PFF grade and 30th in pass rush win rate. Really, really good job for the second-year player who's had to be relied upon a lot as the edges have been dealing with a lot of rotational issues due to injury. Derwin James is been a really, really good slot kind of player. One of those really talented do-it-all safeties. He's 17th out of 64 safeties in pass rush grade, 13th in run defense grade, and 18th in coverage grade. So a top 20 guy out of those 64 safeties in all facets. So just a really versatile tool piece. You're going to have to know where he is at all times. So you're going to need to be aware of that. And it's not that you need to go out of your way to avoid him, but you definitely need to be aware of where he aligns on the field so that you know, hey, he can tend to lurk sometimes. The only difference that I've seen from him post injuries that he's dealt with over the last couple of years is he's not quite made as many plays on the ball. He's 53rd out of 59 players in forced incompletion percentage this season. So not making a lot of plays on the ball, not breaking up a lot of passes, but just playing overall, just good defense in terms of positioning. So not quite the lethal force that Derwin James was his first 2-3 years in the league, but definitely still a really, really talented safety and nickel player. Two guys who actually came from the Titans to the Chargers and now are having a career year, Elijah Molden and Christian Fulton, two talented defensive backs. Molden's having a career year, 83 PFF grade, which is fifth among safeties, and he's got 3 interceptions, sixth in passer rating when targeted, so he's been very, very good in coverage. Christian Fulton has been an awesome addition for the cornerback room, adding to their depth, securing them against injury. He's currently 6th out of 88 corners in coverage grade through 7 games and 304 snaps. I do want to give a shout out real quick to a guy in the middle of that defense, Diane Henley, who has been a stabilizing force for the Chargers. He's 11th out of 47 linebackers in PFF grade, 3rd in coverage grade, and has 3 pass breakups, which is tied first among linebackers. He's also tied 5th in defensive stops. So just been really, really good on that defense. And they've been kind of moving guys around and shuffling guys in that linebacker spot for a while. So maybe he can end up being kind of more of that stabilizing year-to-year force if he continues that level of play. Threw a lot of information at you there on offense, on defense. What does it all mean? Where can the Bengals find their keys to victory? Starting with the offense, you need to challenge a rookie cornerback in Cam Hart and also safety Alohi Gilman. Both these guys have under 50 coverage grades. Gilman has a 44.1 coverage grade. So target that corner, target that safety, find your weak points and pick at them. You'll have to see what happens with the wide receiver rotation as T. Higgins has been dealing with injuries and Jermaine Burton is still trying to find his rhythm in the offense as he gets incorporated. We'll see who ends up being that guy you can take a shot at. But Joe Burrow is definitely dealing right now. So I don't think you need to take away or particularly look in one direction, but definitely take your shots if you get Jamar Chase lined up against Cam Hart, or if you have Gilman trying to take advantage of a guy like a Mike Gesicki. That's definitely a really good opportunity for the offense. Run it Morgan Fox on the interior and Bud Dupree on the edge. Both of these guys have underrun a 50 run defense grade. Don't go at the strong players. Don't go after Khalil Mack if he's on the field. Don't go after Puna Ford, who's been one of the best defensive interior defenders. Just go ahead. Just take advantage of those weak spots. Just try and focus as much attention as you can on these pressure points, because as good as the defense for the Chargers has been this season, there are weak points, just like any other defense, that you can kind of put pressure on in critical situations, especially third and medium, third and four, those kind of must have it, let's say 4th and 2 situations, those kind of situations. Utilize play action. Try and take advantage of the youth at this team and corner, at linebacker, at defensive back. Challenge the discipline of the defense, and someone besides Jamar Chase make a goddamn play. That's my advice to the offense as a key to victory. Looking on the defense and the other side of the ball, you've got to capitalize on the potential turnover worthy play or two you might get from Justin Herbert. He's generally good at taking care of the ball, but like we said, 1 interception to 7 turnover worthy plays, that pendulum is going to swing back at some point. Hopefully for the Bengals defense, it can be this game. Someone besides Trey Hendrickson has got to get a sack. Herbert tends to hold the ball a little bit more to create. There is opportunity. He takes sacks at the 10th highest rate when he's pressured. Interior is definitely able to be beat. The edges are pretty solid, but man, Trey Hendrickson, you got to be a force. I know it's a lot to ask for you, but that interior's got to take advantage. They've got to find ways to maybe get Joseph Osai, Miles Murphy on the field for more of these pass rush opportunities. They've got to do maybe some of these stunts and twists in the interior and just make these guys communicate, because they've clearly struggled. You also need to just try and limit the explosives, because this is an offense that subsisted less on consistency and more on explosive plays. You definitely need to try and limit those as much as possible. No, that's a tough ask with the Bengals defense in the state that they are right now, but I believe that if they are conscientious of it, Will Dissly, Lab McConkey can be lower ADOT, lower target guys. So guys like Quentin Johnson taking away the deep downfield options, that's going to be important, I think. Speaking of the safety blankets, you need to do your best to kind of pressure Herbert and his safety blankets, Will Dissly, Lab McConkey, the guys he looks underneath, the guys he tries to go to in pressure situations. You need to definitely be cognizant of where they are and always have a plan for what you anticipate the offense might throw at you. And definitely, like I said, uh, the scouting says that the Chargers are much more likely to run than expectation would suggest. So 2nd down and short, 3rd and short, put them behind the sticks. You got to take advantage of those opportunities. So if you have to load the box, if you have to challenge them, definitely do it. Send pressure, because you got to find a way to put pressure on the opposing quarterback. And it can't be, we're just going to rush 3, we're going to rush 4, we're going to kind of drop out and change the picture. That's good. But Trey Hendrickson can't be your only source of sacks against, especially when he's going up against a very, very talented tackle like Rashawn Slater. Thank you, as always, for joining us. We appreciate you. Please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, as always, to the Right Way Sports Network for presenting this show. Houday, and we will see you next week.